Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. Today is Wednesday, December 7th, 2022, and I'm your host, Jon June. This guy to my left would be my homie Greg Penniman, aka G Money. Greg, how we doing today, brother?
Doing well. Thursday night football coming up. Got a good matchup. Decent one. Got some some storylines in it. Crazy that we never thought Baker would be back on the field. That's the craziest thing. Sorry. Shout out to Aaron Judge though. He's a Yankee for life, man. Let's go.
I get it. I mean, I'll give you some slack because he did almost falsely reportedly sign with a West Coast team out in San Fran. So I will give you, because we are talking about two West Coast teams, but you said that the craziest thing is Baker playing in this game. I think the craziest thing is that you said we have a good game. I think, to me, that's the craziest thing.
I'm trying to, make something of it. How the pregame shows hype it up, how like Fox, like the America's Game of the Week, be hyping it up when it's not a game. That's what I'm trying to do, make it somewhat interesting for the people,
Well,
I mean, it's definitely important for a lot of people, though. I know that 6 teams on bye. I know it's important at least.
No, it's definitely important, and that's why we are here to help. Obviously, with this playoff push, and we are here to talk about Thursday night game, like Greg talked about, between the Rams and the Raiders. We're also going to give out our streams of the week and some bold predictions, aka player props. But we're also going to talk about some playoff tips and some things that are some pointers that we like to take heading into this playoff push and into the fantasy playoffs. So I'm going to discuss all of that on episode 299. Today is, so you know what that means. Tomorrow, which we will be on tomorrow for part 1. Doing the 1 p.m. games feels like forever since we've done one of those, but part 1 will be episode 300, so it'll be crazy. But we'll be on here and we'll do that tomorrow. So just make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, just make sure you do comment, you like, you subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you get the notifications so that you don't miss a show. You don't want to miss, we've done 300 of these in some form or fashion. You don't want to miss the next 300. So you just make sure you're plugged in and you're ready to go. But without further ado, Greg, since we are going to talk about playoffs, I will save like some potential injuries and stuff for right before the playoff push, just because there are some strategies that we got to discuss with that. But let's jump into the streams of the week, Greg, and your quarterback stream of the week. I'm sure the people can guess who it is, but if not, you'll just tell us, right?
Yeah, man. Mike White going against Buffalo, 20% rostered. In the 2 games he's played, he's been balling out, averaging right over 300 yards per game, averaging 342 yards per game, which is a very high number. Has 3 touchdowns in those games, still giving you a safe floor because of those passing yards. And I think in all these competitive games where the Jets have to kind of put up points, this is going to be a case here when they have to put up points against Buffalo, a defense that is attackable. I mean, you've been saying it for the last 4 weeks now, so I think this is a matchup where he can get close to that 300-yard number again, get in the end zone with passing with Garrett Wilson and his weapons and stuff like that. So I think you got to continue to roll him out there, man. He's getting the attempts up, 42.5 attempts per game in those 2 games. So I think that is very fantasy friendly, and Mike White should continue to put up points.
Yeah, definitely like this one. The Buffalo defense is one that you said it. We've been saying it for weeks. It is attackable. They can't outrun all these injuries that they're getting on the defensive side of the football. Every time they get a player back, they lose another one. Just found out today that they lost Von Miller for the year with what turns out that he actually did injure his ACL, required surgery. So, the defense is attackable. There is one thing to watch with this game as we get closer to kickoff. There is potential rain in this game right now. 60% chance of precipitation in the area, and obviously it's Buffalo, so if it gets cold enough, that could be snow. So not right now, it's not forecasted to be snow, but just things to keep in mind in terms of the weather here. But my quarterback stream of the week, this is really about with 6 teams on bye, which I guess none of them really, maybe only one of them being a team that you would look to for a quarterback. All these other streaming options that I prefer are highly rostered. So I'm going with Tyler Huntley. He's 22% rostered in Yahoo leagues. Uh, don't love the matchup here, but this is all about Huntley's ability with his legs. And if you're looking, for a floor play, I think this game only has a total of 36 and a half. So like we've talked about during the waiver show, like probably not going to anticipate a big ceiling here with a lot of passing yards from Tyler Huntley, but we do know that he can get it done on the ground. He obviously can punch one in from around the goal line as well. I do prefer guys like Goff and Cousins and even Derek Carr, who plays in the Thursday night game, Daniel Jones. I do prefer all those guys above Huntley, but they're all rostered above 50%. Depending on how the weather turns out with Mike White, like I would play him over Huntley. If Ryan Tannehill could get Traylon Burks, he intrigues me as well as a top quarterback option. But yeah, all in all, if those guys are not available in your league, Huntley has an opportunity to produce mainly because of his legs in this one.
Yeah, man, definitely gonna make plays. I mean, that last game, he was able to do what he had to do in a 10-9 game. So yeah, he can make find a way.
Yeah, and don't want to say this is like good news for Mark Andrews because it's not like him and Lamar didn't have a great relation or connection on the field. But I just remember last year Huntley was like, we all thought like, oh, Mark Andrews might be toast, but Huntley comes in and he's like, no, I'm throwing the ball to Mark Andrews like every rep. Like that's where this ball is going. So, and there's no Marquise Brown, there's no Rashad Bateman. Yeah, I think the sky's the limit here for Mark Andrews going forward. I wouldn't worry about him is all I would say, I guess. Greg, your tight end start of the week, as we just talked about, probably top 3 tight end this week.
Yeah, man, Noah Fant, coming off a great week, probably one of his best weeks of the season last week. But over the last 4 games, he's been doing pretty well. Solid floor. He's averaging 51.5 yards per game over the last 4 weeks. I'll take that for a tight end position. Now I'm streaming. That gives you a safe floor. He's getting targeted close to 5 times a game. So he's out there. He's playing well, going against Carolina, a matchup where it's not the best matchup, but I think Seattle, as far as Smith, they'll find opportunities and scoring opportunities as a one of the above average offenses in the league. And Noah Fant should be in there. I mean, I think he's definitely got some touchdown regression too, for some touchdown opportunities coming as well. He's only got 1 touchdown over those last 4 games as well. So I think he should be looked at more in the red zone. And I think he will.
Yeah, I'm upset for Noah Fant here. He gets a downgrade. Last week he was my start of the week, so this week he goes to stream of the week. He finishes the tight end 1, Greg. I mean, I don't know. No, I love this one. Noah Fant. He's been quietly productive over these last few games. I mean, he does have a nice floor. Hasn't had less than 34 receiving yards in any of his last 4 games. So I definitely like this one. 6 teams on bye again. The Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, Indianapolis Colts, New Orleans Saints, and Washington Commanders. We have a tight end, maybe 2 in there, that maybe 3, and maybe like another 2 on the Saints, but depending on if you want to play Taysom Hill or not. But there's decent amount of teams on bye, but this guy's been somewhat productive, and that's Austin Hooper. And the matchup is good here. He's been pretty solid the last 4 weeks, only 14 or 15% rostered in Yahoo leagues. But these last few weeks, he's been the tight end 6 in PPR points the last 4 weeks. And now he gets a cake matchup here against Jacksonville, who ranks second, who allows the second most PPR points to the tight end position in their last 3 games. And if Traylon Burks, who I mentioned before, misses time, then that could boost his target share potentially in this matchup against Jacksonville.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I think target should be there, especially what you're saying, Traylon Burks being banged up a little bit, so opportunity should be there.
Yeah, Greg, and what are you doing for your defensive stream of the week this week?
Sticking with Pittsburgh, I mean, going against 42% rostered, going against
That's not
Baltimore.
not Atlanta. Going against Baltimore, my
Yeah,
bad.
going against Baltimore. The same. You were saying the reasons. Tyler Huntley he can still be just as good as a stream, and this Pittsburgh defense could still dominate in a way because over the last 4 weeks they've gotten at least one sack and at least one pick. So they've been creating opportunities for them turnover wise against teams. And it's a divisional matchup. It's going to be low scoring. You already said the under. I mean, over under is 39. That's going to hit
You
the
said it
under.
right, the under.
Yeah, the under is gonna. Yeah, divisional matchup, grinded out. Two inexperienced quarterbacks. This is definitely gonna be one of those classic AFC North matchups. So I'm looking forward to Pittsburgh creating some turnovers.
Yeah, I definitely like this one. I like it so much. I actually am also going with Pittsburgh against Baltimore as my stream of the week. I know what you're saying. You're probably like, John, why would I stream Tyler Huntley and stream the Pittsburgh defense?
No,
Well,
both can be true for sure.
both can be true. Sacks don't cost you anything, and TJ Watt, like we said, this defense is different when he plays. And the Steelers are my fourth ranked defense in terms of my projection based rankings. So yeah, I do like Pittsburgh a lot this week against Baltimore.
Yeah.
That pretty much covers that in terms of our streams of the week. Let's move on. Oh, I guess we can say this, right? Because we won't talk about him until like Saturday when we do part 2. But Hunter Henry was in consideration for both of our streams of the week. He plays Arizona. Greg assumed he was going to be my stream of the week. I assumed that I would wake up and he would be rostered over 50%, so I wasn't going to bother. But he's not, and he's out there. So if you are in a league, I think Greg is in agreement. Like Hunter Henry's probably the top tight end stream this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Arizona, you have the best matchup of any tight end for that position. So yeah, you gotta jump on that, especially if he's out there.
Yeah, most definitely. And he's still out there in some leagues. I know there was a couple leagues I was in, he got picked up, but in some other leagues, he's still out there. Let's move into Thursday Night Football now, and we are covering a game against the 5-7 Las Vegas Raiders, who are traveling to Los Angeles to take on the 3-9 Los Angeles Rams. This game has a 44.5 point total, where the LA Raiders are 5.5 point road favorites in this one. In terms of weather, we're okay, no concerns there. In terms of injuries, Josh Jacobs coming off the short week, back-to-back massive workloads. He's limited with a quad injury. Running back Amir Abdullah, he's questionable with a hamstring. Darren Waller, he's on track to be activated from the injured reserve. He states that he could possibly play against New England, not this week, but the week after. And then for the Rams, wide receiver Ben Skoranek, he's questionable with the shoulder. John Wolford is questionable with a neck, and newly acquired quarterback Baker Mayfield, as said by Sean McVay, who we know is a liar, but I don't know if he's lying about this one. Says that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Baker Mayfield plays. John Wolford is injured, has a neck injury. Could be wear and tear. Could also, be a significant, or not a significant injury, but one which causes him to miss some time. Bryce Perkins, I think they tried that. They don't really want to do that again. But is it fair to ask Baker Mayfield to play in a football game as a quarterback behind this offensive line with those weapons on like 2 days of walkthroughs? Because they didn't practice Thursday Night Football. It's just walkthroughs. So yeah, I don't know. That's something. I mean, obviously from a fantasy perspective, I don't think that really makes a difference. Maybe you go out and you say, hey, I want to stream the Raiders defense, who they are one of the top streaming options this week from a defensive perspective. I don't know if I want to play a bad defense. I was having this conversation in my head, the other day, Greg, like, do you play a bad defense against an offensive mind like Sean McVay, who can maybe overcome for some of his deficiencies by picking out what you're bad at? Like, I don't really know what to make of that.
Nah, I mean, there's only so much you could do as a coach. I mean, they're 3-9. Like, I'm sure they played bad defenses this year already. So, yeah, I think Vegas is a good option.
Yeah, no, okay, maybe I'm overthinking it. So, for the Raiders, Greg, or for this game, Greg, where are you leaning in terms of the matchup here?
I think I'm gonna take the under. The cover. I think I'm gonna take Raiders to cover. They were able to get cover last week as well. Got 7, and one actually beat Seattle by 6 as well. So I'm gonna take them to cover, and I'm gonna take the Vegas Raiders to win. Playing the best football right now, actually. On a 3-game win streak. So looking to get 4 on their side. Derek Carr, I think, is a solid streaming option this week as well. I think a high in QB2 could finish as a QB1 borderline because Rams secondary has been very weak this year, and especially being killed by wide receiver 1. So Devontae Adams is in for a smash spot day. He should dominate as he has been all year. No reason he should have finished top 3 wide receiver. Josh Jacobs should continue to dominate as well as a high-end wide receiver. I mean, RB1. So looking to play him out there. Foster Moreau, I think, can be used as a deep league, streaming option. Think he, is coming of his own, up and down, obviously, this season. But I think with the 16-1 bye, I think in a pinch, I think you can use him. And Mac Hollins, for this game, I think they'll probably be leading a little bit. They probably will lean on a little bit more Josh Jacobs. So Mac Hollins are probably not as hot on him as it was in the last couple of weeks. But Devontae should kill. Josh Jacobs should kill. Derek Carr should have a solid game. And on the Rams side, it's really coming down to who this running back is going to be, who's going to get the more snap percentage. I'm willing to play that person. Just don't know if it's Cam Akers or Kyron Williams. I'm going to just go off trend and just say Cam Akers is like back in play as a RB3. And yeah, that's all I got for the
How
Rams side.
confident do you feel about that?
I'm not confident at all. I'm not confident at all.
Oh man.
Not.
Okay. I'm confident in that the game here because we both got the same thing. I'm taking the under, taking the Vegas Raiders to cover and the Vegas Raiders to win. In terms of the fantasy matchups, Josh Jacobs, I think he's an RB1. I mean, I did talk about the workload that he's had these last few weeks. Has had 21 carries and at least 21 carries in 4 straight games. He's had carries of 21, 24, 33, 26. So again, Thursday Night Football, do they continue to feed him? I think that they do because like you talked about the Raiders, they're on a 3-game win streak. I think that they're 5-7, right? So they're not out of the playoff hunt. They put up the graphic the other day, and the Raiders are in the hunt now. So I think that they lean on Josh Jacobs. That's a formula that's been working for them. They're going to continue to do that. And I think that, with Thursday Night Football, you get the extra day's rest, right? 10 days rest now instead of, just a week. So I think that they're going to use that to their advantage here. I do like Devontae Adams. I did not realize when we were talking the other day and we were talking about, I was saying Amon-Ra St. Brown, like I don't think there's any wide receiver I'd rather have than him right now. And you were saying Devontae, and like I just remember him being like disappointing at the beginning of the year, but I didn't realize the stretch that he's been on.
Yeah, he's been on a tear right now. Absolute tear. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not realize that he, the tear that he's been on is. I don't have any Devontae Adams, which I guess is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, it's just he's been phenomenal. So he is a wide receiver 1 this week. I will continue to rank Amon-Ra St. Brown as the wide receiver 1 until it happens. So Devontae Adams, he's going to be the wide receiver 2 for me in my rankings this week. But he's absolutely in a smash spot here against the Rams. Foster Moreau, I think he's in play as a tight end one, has a nice matchup here. Against the LA Rams, the same LA Rams that Noah Fant had his matchup against last week. And Moreau had 33 yards on his, I think, first catch, but then didn't finish the game. So, he's, definitely involved, has had, I think, 30 or 40 receiving yards in about every game he's played, since Darren Waller's been out. Derek Carr, I think he's an intriguing QB1 option for sure. I think he's someone that's definitely in play. And then for the LA Rams, so JJ Zacharyson, late round quarterback, he talked about he thinks it's game script dependent. He thinks that Cam Akers led the backfield in touches because they were playing with a lead, and they played with a lead for more than they have played with a lead in recent weeks. And the week before, they were trailing against Kansas City, and so that game script was more for Kyron Williams, right? So I think you can only play these guys in DFS. Like, that's the only place I like. Like, if you have to win, like, you need to win. Like, imagine you start Cam Akers on Thursday night and you just sit there and it's like 2 points. And then you just got to stare at that for the whole weekend. Like, that would be so, like, I think I'm confident. I'm comfortable just sitting this one out with these guys. I mean, I know there's 6 teams on bye, but I just can't. I can't do it to myself.
Yes, it's tough. I think if you can really try to find one, you must find one. You have to find another option. But yeah, because it's Thursday too. Yeah, and you got to make that decision quick. Hopefully, I'm hoping the Raiders could get a blowout. You might start Amir Abdullah. Get over them too.
Yeah, man. It's tough. Like,
yeah,
definitely tough. Not one that I would want to, put my fantasy season on the line for.
yeah.
Let's talk about some bold predictions, Greg. What do you got in terms of a prop for this game here?
I think I'm all Raiders here. Taking Devontae's over on receiving yards, which is 80.5. Taking Josh Jacobs over on his rushing yards, which is 89.5. And then give me a Devontae Adams anytime touchdown. This man's been on a tear as far as touchdowns this year. I think in the last 5 games he's got 7 touchdowns. So I'm here for it.
All right, yeah, I am with you in the yardage. I went, except I like to play the ladders, so I went Devontae Adams 100+ receiving yards, which doesn't sound crazy.
No, it's not at all. He had 177 last week. He's got over 120 in his last 4 out of the last 5 games.
Yeah, so. But look at what the Rams have done in recent weeks. They allowed 2 receivers to go over 120. Go for 127 last week. They allowed both Arizona receivers in DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore. Hopkins had 98. Rondale Moore had 94. Go look at the box score when they played the Chiefs. They allowed every receiver on that team to go over 28 receiving yards. Yeah, that's like 2 wide receiver. That's 200-yard wide receivers right there. So, yeah, I think Devontae Adams 100 receiving yards. It just kind of feels like stealing. I mean,
he averages all 118 against the Rams too historically. So
him 100 receiving yards. I believe the line on that is plus 140 for 100 receiving yards for, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just checking. Yeah, plus 140 for 100 receiving yards. But I'm never gonna stop there, Greg. I'm never gonna stop there. So I gotta parlay it. So
you gotta parlay it.
Also have Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
Over 100 rushing yards.
Been easy for him. This man is
that's plus 134. The only thing we did talk about the workload and stuff. So if there's any cause for concern, that would probably be it. Um, but
160 over the last 3 games.
yeah, he's been on a tear. So that's plus 130. I think I said, what is it? Plus 134 for Josh Jacobs, 100 plus receiving yards. So if you parlay those two together, you've got a plus 469. So that is $100 to win $469.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do both for sure. What? Because that is perfect. Because I don't need to rely on the touchdown, which is the hardest one, and then just rely on them getting those yards.
Yeah, most definitely. So there you go. There you have it. Your Thursday night FFDX prop bets. So let's talk about playoffs. Playoffs. And so Greg, obviously, we have not just the League of Extraordinary People, but we also have a league that we co-manage. It is a half PPR league, and so we are fighting for playoff push in that
Mhm.
one. We're basically in an elimination game where even if we do lose, I think, like you said, Greg, we have an opportunity to make it. I don't like to think like that. I just want to
No,
win.
yeah, well,
Let's
yep,
get this
when
dub. But yeah, no, we and then we have different teams and different and other different areas. I've got some teams that have already clinched playoffs, clinched for bye weeks and things like that. So let's just talk about just overall general playoff tips. Like what things are you trying to do right now, or to set yourself up for not just getting in the playoffs this week, but a successful playoff run.
Yeah, no, definitely. Always a proponent of getting again those safety net running backs, specifically. Especially if you're, I don't know, a Joe Mixon manager, if you're a Josh Jacobs manager, or I don't know, Dalvin Cook manager, go get those safety net guys to help you sustain success for you know the playoffs. Because I'm sure in the playoffs, not a lot of people has fab money. Fab money is real low these days, so unless you didn't really weren't active on your fab money, you're probably lower than 50% of what you have. So you don't want to try to break the bank during the fantasy playoff time. And yeah, you're more than for more now than ever. You're looking ahead. You're looking at defensive matchups for week 13, 14, no, 14, 15, 16. So sorry, 15, 16, 17, and sometimes for 18 for some of those leagues out there. You're looking at those matchups. Who got the best ones? And hey, if you want to have two defenses on the roster, this is the time to do it. And have a plan ready for the entire playoff run.
Yeah, absolutely. I like both of those. The safety net running backs, obviously, you want to be able to shore those up, those insurance policies up, even if you don't, like we said, even if you don't roster them,
Right.
right? Like
If you don't have them.
Alexander
Yep.
Madison is, the Dalvin Cook manager has the audacity to let Alexander Madison sit on waivers. Go scoop him up, right? Like, things like that. Uh, Looking ahead to defensive matchups, that's another fantastic one. Look ahead to week 14, 15. See who has matchups against Houston. We talked about Kansas City and they're fantastic, playoff stretch where they get two matchups against Denver and one against Houston, right? So,
Mhm.
Tennessee also has a really good playoff schedule. So look ahead to those teams, grab those. This is the time to, if your quarterback has already been on bye, unless you're in a super flex league or you have, I guess, unless you have like Kyler Murray and Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson, like some team I know has that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. But unless you have those, like you're not going to drop those players because obviously you don't want to face those players. Like I
Yeah.
don't want
No, no, no.
another team who's
No.
maybe they're limping into the playoffs with Tom Brady. Like I don't want you to
Yeah,
now
don't
have
gift them that. Yeah. Yeah.
no. So, but like if you've got Kirk Cousins and I don't even know who would be like Jared Goff, right? Like maybe after this week, I'd be willing to expose one of those guys, to waivers because I don't need a backup quarterback, right? And
Right.
and now with more teams eliminated from playoff contention, you're competing with less teams for streaming quarterback options and streaming defenses and things of that nature. So to that point, also make sure you have an emergency fund. You talked about the, the playing, you talked about, people not having fab money at this time, right? Save some bucks, right? Save eight, nine, $10 of fab so that like you can outbid other playoff teams for that defense. If there is an injury that happens mid playoffs, right? Like I remember a few years ago, Todd Gurley suffered that knee injury, right? And it was championship week, and people, CJ Anderson and people made it into the playoffs with Todd Gurley, basically limped in, but didn't have him for that playoff stretch. And CJ Anderson was a hot commodity on waivers for championship week, right? So make sure you have that fab money saved up so you can make those bids out bids those teams for those defenses, a streaming quarterback and backup running, or backup running backs or a wide receiver, things like that. uh the other thing I would add, I talked about it the other day. If you've earned the bye week, it's we get a lot of, the adrenaline and the endorphins are running because we can set our lineup and we want to see how well they've done. And somebody recently said to me, yeah, but you got to, I want them to get the reps in, like, don't can't have it can't have it down week. But none of that is as important as maintaining flexibility throughout the fantasy playoffs, right? Having the bye week affords you the opportunity to do a lot of things. It affords you to not have to, maybe you don't have to roster a tight end because you can hoard all these defenses. Maybe you are awaiting a player like Dallas Goedert who is coming off IR, and you don't have to start him in week 15. You can see how he does and start him the next week, or plan around that. But the most important thing is, if you have a player in your lineup and they go down, God forbid there's an injury, you that player is stuck in your lineup. You can't
Yeah.
drop them, you can't make an adjustment. But if you have your whole bench empty, you can that player gets injured in Yahoo, a league that lets you drop players after they've already played. You can drop them right then and there and just pivot to another player at another position who
Yep.
hasn't played their game yet. So just maintain that flexibility. I know you want to see how your team scores, but I promise you the flexibility is more important. Just use a calculator.
Yeah, just use a calculator if you really want to put the time into that. Yeah, if you really want to score, you'll find a way. Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
just
much.
just punch them in Excel real quick. Just see what it
Yeah,
would look like. Actually, that's a great idea. Just punch your lineup in Excel, the lineup that you would start in Excel, and then calculate the scores, and then you'll be happy and walk away from it. So, uh, any anything else you got, Greg, in terms of playoff tips?
no, I think that's about it. Those are pretty good. Yeah, yeah.
So, what are we doing? I know there's some quarterback injuries, right? Like Lamar Jackson, he suffered, what's known to be a PCL injury. That's a 2 to 4 week injury by reports out there. Is he somebody that, if you are the Lamar Jackson manager, are you holding him through the fantasy playoffs, or are you willing to drop him now?
I think if unless I really have no other options, then you might do what you have to do. But I would try to keep him, hold him. 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, the Ravens need to make the playoffs. I could see him trying to. Also, it's a contract year for Lamar. I mean, if he if he beats the 2 week timeline, he comes back minimum. That's playoff time. So even 4 week time is that's championship game. So I think it's worth it to keep him unless you really can't.
I think it's tough, right? I mean, some injury experts were talking. This is a knee injury, right? So even if he comes back, he's not gonna be the same Lamar that you know he's been, right? Like I think Zach Wilson had this injury last year, and it took him a little bit. I mean, he sat out, I think, 2 to 4 weeks, or 3 weeks or whatever it was, and it still took him a little bit to really get his mobility back. And obviously we know how important that is to Lamar Jackson's game.
Hmm.
And to be honest, speaking as a Lamar Jackson manager in a league of extraordinary people, he was kind of disappointing before the injury. right? Like I was rolling him out there, and it's like, he was great to start the year, but he kind of faded, especially after losing Rashad Bateman. So, it was tough to throw him out there every week when he was underperforming, and now you get the injury. It's kind of, I'm looking at it as might drop him and let somebody else, pick him
That'd be
up, and
someone else's problem. Yeah.
let him be somebody else's problem, especially if I can afford to, right? Like we've talked about, Mike White's schedule. Trevor Lawrence has been fantastic. He's dealing with an injury of his own, so that's something to monitor. Jared Goff has been good as well. So there's all these other options that you could take, right? Like I would even like the other approach, if you really want to hold on to Lamar, is just pick up Tyler Huntley.
Yeah. Just
The
have
other,
that ready.
you just have you have the Ravens quarterback situation, pretty much set there. But I think you could, over these next 4 weeks, you could make it streaming, honestly,
Yeah.
in one quarterback leagues.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that pretty much covers it. Obviously, we're going to talk about the 1 p.m. games tomorrow and break down all of that stuff. So, just make sure you tune in. Will be sometime in the evening, before Thursday night football. So, just make sure you turn notifications on, tune in, check it out, and as you make this playoff push, just true than it is right now. So everyone, have a good evening. We'll see y'all later. Actually, tomorrow for episode 300. Have a good one. We're out of here. Peace.
Yeah.